What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I just made a video, just wrapped up filming a video about my baits for September on a traditional lake. Here in Georgia, we have Lake Lanier and other herring lakes in our backyard that are not traditional bass fishing lakes. These fish behave completely different and they require a bunch of different tools to target them correctly. So in today's episode, I'm going to go in and talk about my favorite baits for the month of September on any of these herring lakes throughout the Southeast. Everything that you read about September fishing is pretty much negative. You hear that it's a tough time of year to get bit, yada, yada, yada. And I alluded to earlier in the video that herring lakes just act completely different. And while the rest of the country might struggle in the month of September, September is a great time to be on a herring lake. And the reason for that is rather than it being, a couple fish, sometimes it might be 10 fish on a brush pile, 40 fish on a brush pile, who knows. Sometimes those fish group up. This time of year, there'll always be fish on brush, but this time of year, look for shoals in shallower places that drop off near deep water. And those places will have fish schooled up by the actual hundreds. These fish get into large schools and actually sit on a place, on a piece of structure. It's kind of similar to like the herring spawn, where fish are going to be kind of living on these long, instead of it being like a long tapered point, it's going to be more of like a steep drop off. But there's going to be a school of fish on a place, and you can actually sit on one spot and just catch them rather than running and gunning and fishing the brush like you typically would for herring fish. So that being said, the month of September, you get to throw a lot of fun reaction and moving baits. So without further ado, let's get into the tackle and the techniques that I'm throwing this time of year for these lakes. So number one is going to be a soft plastic jerkbait. This one right here is the Big Bite Stealth color. It's like the blue laminate. Let me get the bag. Stealth Blue Glimmer. So that's probably one of my favorite colors. It's actually a lot thicker of a minnow, thicker of a soft plastic jerkbait, so you can cast it a lot further. I almost exclusively throw a nose hooked rig. I just think it swims the best, and I also think you have the best hookup ratio. The only time I throw it like your traditional like Texas rig or like weedless with like a worm hook is when they're just really chewing, and just like I'm getting kind of lazy or fishing with somebody, just because there's a lot of ingredients that kind of make this rig what it is. Sometimes I'll put a nail weight in there. I'll put that CPS centering spring right through the middle. Basically, I'm just threading that little screw lock into the nose of the bait, grabbing I think this is a 2/0 talisman, and just rigging it right through that loop while still grabbing a chunk of that plastic just so it holds on there great. Usually I add a nail weight anywhere from an 1/8 and lighter, just kind of depends on what they do. 1/8's a good place to start. It's heavy, it gets to them quick, and I'm fishing this real aggressively, pulling the bait, not so much like jerking it, pulling it, making it vibrate. A lot of times they'll eat it on the paws. I think that nose hooks just gives it the best action, and when everyone's throwing a fluke on a herring lake, you know the deal. Small details make big differences on these herring lakes. So taking a little bit extra time to rig it properly, I feel like you get a lot of extra fish in the boat, one, and also you get a lot more bites than a lot of people. But I'm pretty much two strings of thoughts on flukes. I'm either going to be throwing a real natural clear kind of color like this one. Strike King's got one called Glacier, I believe. That's pretty similar. Or I'm going the opposite end of the spectrum and throwing bright chartreuse. Those are kind of the two colors I throw this time of year. Check out the Big Bite baits. Jerk minnow is just a little bit heavier. You can throw it on a bait caster if you want to. I'm a spinning rod guy. I throw it on that 7/6 medium light X Pride. Kind of the best fluke rod I've ever thrown in my life. If you're a spinning rod fluke rod, it's 7/6, and it just absolutely dots them when they're out there like 110. You can actually just hit them on the nose with it. Got that with 3000 twin power. It's actually over there. Might grab it for the later part of the video, but that's just like my favorite like schooling fish kind of spinning rod there is out there. But check out a fluke. Everyone's got them in their boat. That's going to be bait number one for the month of September on a herring lake. Bait number two this time of year is going to be a little bit different. these fish are eating herring, but they're also eating a lot of small threadfin. And it's kind of weird. You'll go into like certain creeks in certain zones of the lake, and in one zone they might be coughing up herring like that long, and other places they're eating threadfins this big. So a little bit of different baits, and it kind of changes like day to day, kind of like what they're feeding on. So I always keep it honest and always pay attention, try to match the hatch, because certain times of the day they might be eating herring and certain times of the day they might be eating threadfins. These herring fish just change on, on a dime basically. So I'm gonna throw a few different baits. I'm gonna just wrap them into one category, and that's gonna be like hard plastic minnow style baits, eye motion style baits, and kind of like these. I don't even know how to describe them, but number one is going to be the Depths Wagasagi bait. So what this is actually a little bit different version. Typically it has like tinsel tail, and this is a new one they came out with last year. It's got an elastic tail, and it's almost like that mooch minnow tail that a lot of guys love, and it just gives that micro vibration. It doesn't weigh a whole bunch. This is the 65, but if you can get it on a long cast, like real light braid, I'm throwing that 902 NRX with a 3000 twin power. But that's the setup you kind of need to spawn this thing, because it doesn't weigh hardly anything at all. But if you can get this around bass that don't eat other baits, like they're getting smart on a place, like after you've caught some on Topwater and fluke or whatever, you can throw that in there behind them after you let them rest, and a lot of times you can catch some really big fish. Basically, this thing just V-wakes under the surface, and that's a great option that not a lot of guys throw, that I'm kind of in love with. I got some videos on my channel kind of throwing it, do nothing for more bass this fall, but that's kind of number one, is going to be that eye motion stuff. This one does have a little bit more action than the traditional tinsel tail. I forgot what this one's called, but I'll link it in the bio. Another one in that category that I'm just going to kind of consider this category, it's just hard minnow bait, is going to be this rocket bait by Ima. This is actually a saltwater bait that you probably can't. I know Tackle Warehouse doesn't sell them, and only certain dealers sell them that are actually saltwater Ima stores. But you can't really get your hands on them. If you look for them, you can find some. But that's a really great bait. It's got a unique lip. But I'm gonna kind of classify this as similar to like a credge or a riser. So it's a bait that just wakes just on the surface. It's definitely more aggressive than that Wagasagi bait. This one's kind of an in-between a true riser on top of the surface. This one kind of sits way head down and just kind of does that little action. And it seems like day in and day out, if I only had one type of bait, I'm going to throw like a riser or something like this. Great option. I've been playing with this rocket bait. This is the only color I have in this one, just because it has been kind of hard to find. But that's a great option. And then, Jackal Riser is kind of the original one that everybody throws and everybody knows to love. So check those out. And that's going to be my category for number 2, best baits to throw in the fall for herring lake. My next bait is a big Magnum topwater. So this is the Ima Bonnet, which is a literal tuna lure. I posted something a little bit back of catching like a, 3-pounder on one. Nothing crazy, but this is a bait that is going to start playing. A lot of guys know the Cast OG, kind of the first original one to come to the States and really be put to use on a herring lake, was that Cast one. And it's a great bait. I've actually got a couple of my boxes. But since then, I kind of started diving into that whole stick bait genre. And once I, got with Depths and Ima and Optimum this year, I realized that we actually make a stick bait designed specifically for bluefin tuna, and that's the Bonnet 160F, which is a giant plug. You've seen all the teeth marks all over that thing. I've got to play with this a little bit. This color is actually called bluefin tuna, and it is a absolute monster bait. And I like this bait when it is choppy out. This time of year, we'll have kind of like, especially like in October, late September, October, we'll have these big like storm fronts kind of come through, where it'll be like a couple days like misty rain, wind, all that stuff. And there's no better bait than this thing right here. I'm basically making a couple handle turns like real hard, and then I'm pausing it. A lot of times they'll bite it on the pause. I think Cast has kind of got away from like actually selling these baits to the public. I think they have them like on their actual website maybe that you can get the big ones from, but I haven't really heard anything. They sell the 20 grams. This is like one of their original ones. You can see it's like pretty similar in size. The cast actually might be a little bit bigger, but both are great options. I like the IMA one a bit more just because it sits like nose down. I know a lot of guys that throw that cast one will actually put a piece of lead in the very, very back of theirs, which is nothing wrong with the bait. It just makes it sit like that. This bait automatically sits real like tall like that. And a lot of times when they'll bite it on the paws and they'll get that back hook, and then once you're fighting them, you'll be able to get another hook into them. But that is a very unique bait that you will not hear about any other, anybody else talk about, or any other style of fishery really throwing a bait like this in the fall or in September. So that's a great option. These are not on Tackle Warehouse yet. Working on that, talking to some people to try to get that in Tackle Warehouse. But for now, you can find it at like ima.com, and they'll point you in the right direction to some dealers to find this, because it's actually on their saltwater side of things. The Bennett 160. They make a 190. That's really big. I might have to play around with some, but they really like the Bennett 160 size. So check that one out. And I might need to kind of go and explain on rod and reel for this bait. I'm throwing on the 7.3 heavy solid tip rod from Shimano. This is actually designed for throwing a swim jig. But it's kind of been a great rod for like that in-between big bait stuff. You could throw it on that 7.4 outlier just fine and be a great option, but I like the little bit stiffer tip just to work the bait a little more. But that solid tip just has just enough play to where I can walk the bait. They don't pull hooks out, nothing like that. Throwing this one on 18-pound fluorocarbon just straight. I kind of been going from braid to leader to straight braid to have like full fluorocarbon. The thing about the fluorocarbon is it makes the bait swim under the water whenever you pull it, and sometimes they'll bite it like that, and especially like once it swims and then pops back up, that's when they chew that thing. But you can see the teeth marks on that thing. That thing is a sick bait. But 8-to-1 reel for fast gear ratio. This actually isn't even an 8. This is just the XG Antares. No need to have an Antares, but the Antares is sick, and that's why I have this. So you can get away with any bigger gear ratio, like a Bantam even. 200 size reel, Bantam or Corrado would be kind of ideal for that. So that's the big giant topwater. That's going to be, I don't even know what we're on, but that's going to be one to always have tied on when it's nasty out. This cat right here needs some new hooks bad. Like, I'm glad I actually pulled him out of my box because he is about to get a big time workout. Caught him on this bait like crazy last year, and that was just a wake bait in general. These long kind of slender baits. This is the spiral minnow. This is a bait that a lot of Lanier guys have kind of kept quiet for some time, and it's kind of been a hard bait to get. The cool thing about Depths is they're starting to come and bring these back and get them restocked in some dealers. Hopefully here soon. Spiral minnow is just an awesome wake bait. It comes with a blade. I actually took the blade off on this one. Sometimes I leave it, sometimes I take it off. Just depends on how aggressive they are. But this is a great bait to just kind of slowly V-wake over the top of them. On those shoals and stuff, but even like in October, I had a lot of success throwing it just at like single fish, or if there's like a little pod of them, like hauling ass under the surface. I would just put that on their head and just crawl it real slow, and I'd catch a lot of fish on that bait when they wouldn't come up for traditional top water or anything like that. And the wake bait is something that like doesn't really get thrown around the rest of the country a whole lot, but herring guys like them. But like recently, even these have kind of like been kind of kept quiet recently. But the spiral minnow is a great one. The Roomba's more of like a I've got a Roomba right here. This is like in my color, the Chattahoochee Chrome color. Right there, it's like more of a fatter kind of profile. I didn't know if I'd like this one for herring fish just because of how fat it is, and it's more like bluegilly kind of profile. This one's kind of made to imitate like those old man's 1-minuses. But I've played with it a little bit, caught some fish on it. Still gonna say that I'm more partial to the spiral minnow. Would love to see that in Chattahoochee Chrome. But the spiral minnow, or really any other wake bait like that, the Spro one's pretty good. The problem is you can't cast it all that great. the depths one, you can actually like cast it a lot better than a lot of those other wake baits. But there's a lot of different like really good ones on the market. Some guys throw them on a spinning rod. This depths is big enough that you can throw it on a bait caster no problem. So check that one out if you can find them. But there's a lot of great wake baits, and there's a lot of good custom wake baits also. It's a bait that just nobody throws anymore, and you can catch a lot of fish on that thing just crawling it super slow. So another bait I like to throw this time of year is just going to be a hard jointed swim bait like these. These are both custom built handmade swim baits. This one right here is a sweet bait. So you can see that one doesn't have a lot of paint left because they like that one. That one's been chewed up a few times. That one's cool because you can just throw like a fluke tail on the back of it or throw whatever you want on the back of it. It's a really great bait. Doesn't weigh a ton. That's the junior size. I also throw the big one a lot. This one's an extreme lures one. This color is a little weird. I've caught them on it. It's not my favorite color, but I have caught them on it pretty good. I've caught some big ones on it. Caught some big largemouth actually on it, believe it or not. Last herring spawn. Rob Jordan makes these baits. Don't know the guy, but he does make a quality product. Definitely be wary with these baits, I will say. Some of them are like get them out of the package and throw them around. But I like these baits a lot because he gives you the option to kind of like tinker with them. Pull pins out, add weight, that sort of deal. This is a really good bait. This one's not like a burner. This is kind of like their slower one. Good bait. I like kind of this color is kind of like faded. When I first got it, it was like that super, super teal kind of color. I like that it's kind of faded out into what it is now. But that's a great option too. Is that Rob Jordan one? But if I don't have one, probably that sweet baits one, or if you can find the Magic Swimmer Sabiles that once were the greatest of all time. But Berkeley's making them now too. They're pretty solid. I can't really tell the difference too much. I just tie on the original ones just because I have a few. But hard swim baits, gonna be burning this right below the surface, just kind of V-waking it. I say burning. I just want to keep this thing right below the surface. You can see I've got like a little bit of pink right there. I like to be able to track my bait just because with the pink I can see it under the water. One, I'm using live scope a lot. Like pretty much every fish I throw at is going to be with forward-facing sonar. But I still like having that visual on the top just because I can able to see when I know those fish are about to bite. I can see like little like things I might do, like stop the reel handle or reel it quick. Something I might do with the bait to trigger those bites, or if like I do something wrong a lot of the times, I can figure out, oh, I sped it up, they didn't like that. Maybe don't do that next time. So I like having that visual pink. You can just add them. This is just the Ryu crack marker. Basically, it's just a sticker you put on there, but there's a bunch of different brands. You can even get fingernail polish and do that. So third bait, going to be the hard swim bait. Last one, and it's going to be tried and true, and that is the IMA skimmer. Any sort of walking topwater bait this time of year. This one is in Chattahoochee Chrome, which is a color I actually got to design in part with IMA. And the whole reasoning behind this bait is people think that a blueback herring is blue. Well, they only have a blue strip on them when they die. But that being said, blue has always been a great color for some of these herring lakes. I know like a lot of guys like those emerald kind of colored poppers. Like there's some guys around Lanier that were getting some custom poppers made and stuff like that. I don't even know the whole story, but I know it's kind of like a greenish teal kind of color. And I've always just had success with kind of blue hues in my baits. I wanted something that was still natural, that I could throw on a variety of different lakes, not just herring lakes, a good just overall bait fish color. And I wanted subtle contrast. So having that chrome that everyone knows and loves with that, light blue teal finish, it's just absolute killer. And a lot of guys were like, dude, they're not going to see the top of their topwater, doesn't matter, yada, yada, yada. Lake Lanier fish are built different. They track a bait so much further. Every little detail matters, and having that, real subtle contrast, I feel like is a big reaction key to them, and having just a little bit different. Skimmer also just dips and dives and does all types of crazy stuff, so they see the whole bait for sure. But it's going to be available not only in the skimmer, but it's going to be available in like pin jack and stuff, and I'm really looking forward to like taking this color not just to a herring lake, because it's going to be a great just kind of sunny day color. A lot of people have been locked into like those matte finishes on a lot of baits, but I'm still a sucker for a good chrome bait. But that's the I'm a Skimmer. The little stick's great too when it's a little bit wavy out, but you don't want to throw that big giant thing over there when it's like kind of the in-between chop, a lot of boat traffic. I'll throw that little stick. But day in and day out, man, the I'm a Skimmer is going to be the one that I'm going to have tied on pretty much all the time. So check out all these baits. I'll have links to them in my Tackle Warehouse description. And guys, I appreciate you following along this channel. Please like and subscribe. We're going to try kicking out some more videos for y'all. And I should have my boat back here shortly. And I'm going to be running guide trips for the full month of September and October. So guys, should be about two weeks or so for a boat, maybe a little less, praying for a little less than that. And I'll be running some trips all over Lake Lanier, as well as anywhere you guys want to go. I'm down to go. Technique-specific trips, high school trips, corporate trips, you know the whole deal. I just like to fish, guys, and I like sharing what I know with y'all. So please like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.